Manx Radio Sport.
A very good evening to you. I'm Rob Pritchard and welcome once again to Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio, with you now through until 6:30pm with another packed schedule of sport for the Isle of Man this weekend coming up tonight. Just 2 points separate the top four in the Men's Premier League in Manx football, and there's nothing to choose at the summit of Division 2 as the latest fixtures across the division await this weekend. After a win and a draw in the last week, FC Isle of Man are back on home soil with the fierce test of Congleton Town awaiting them on Saturday night. In rugby, 3 local fixtures including big tests for Douglas and Vagabonds, and 3 separate derbies in one league as part of another busy schedule of fixtures in mixed Manx hockey. That is all to come this evening. We're going to kick things off straight away with looking at Manx football. The rollercoaster of a season goes on at the moment. 2 points separating the top 4 sides in the Canada Life Men's Premier League, and it's just as close in Division 2 as well in these early stages of the season, and plenty more to come. For the first time this evening, we'll bring in Tony Mepham to give us a quick word on, well, Tony, just how's this season going? It's tremendous, isn't it?
Well, it is good for everyone if you're involved in it. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it, where you're sort of down towards the bottom. You've got more panic stations to try and stay in the league. But no, there's 1 or 2 clubs up there. Let's look at St John's first. Shame that game has gone tonight. He announced before that the game was postponed, and they had a look at the pitch this morning about 11 o'clock and no chance. The warning light was on last night, and thanks for St John's for keeping us informed, and just no way. So unfortunately that one's gone. But let's have a look at Union Mills as well. They've been fantastic in recent weeks. I've watched them a couple of times. They play some great football. They've got plenty of goals in them at the moment, even though one of their key players transferred this week, Leo Fox, which is a strange one because Stephen Fox was manager last year. But, if something doesn't fit for you, then you're in your rights to sort of transfer at the moment. But Peel, massive club in Manx football, and last year found it really hard to sort of get involved in that top 4. But at the moment, absolutely flying. And that's all boiling down to Rhys Oates, I think, Rob, because he's in great form in front of goal. It's just nice to be able to ping a ball up to a wonderful footballer, and he'll do the business and score the goals. But there's plenty of other talent in there as well. But Rhys at the moment is a shining light for them.
Absolutely. Well, the table at the moment is St John's at the top on 15 points, and then in behind them are Peel, Ayr United, and mine's gone blank. Union Mills, of course.
Union Mills, yep.
Took me a moment there, but obviously with St John's, as you rightly mentioned, their game tonight postponed because of a waterlogged pitch. It's a big opportunity. So 5 games then going into Saturday in the Canada Life Men's Premier League. Yeah,
it is, and Union Mills against Unken. I think that's the game that Paul Moran's choosing for me to go and visit, and I watched them a couple of weeks ago and really impressed, enjoyed the way they went about it. As well with Unken, I think they're doing really well to say it's their first season back in the Premier League since the 90s, so well done to them. Tom Creer, I'm not too sure if he'll play because I think the under-18s will be back. I don't know how they got on this morning, Rob. I don't know if you got the scoreline, but yesterday certainly did well with a super win. But if Tom's in there, gives them just a little bit of different shape. But I thought last week they were good. They played good football. And against the Millers, they're going to find it tough. But I just think the way Union Mills and Paul Guyver's got them playing at the moment, it's going to be very difficult for them to break it down defensively.
Well, let's take another look at one of the other contenders up at the top, Peel. They're at home to struggling St George's.
Yeah, they are struggling. And another one, you'll remember the name, Nathan Cardy, last year from FC Isle of Man. Now, he's transferred to Castletown, and people blame the Isle of Man FA for allowing transfers to go through up until the end of December. There's nothing you can do. It's the English FA. We have to play under their rules, and it's something that's there in place now. But you just sort of question, and I'm not knocking Nathan, but, St George's are really struggling. Nathan got in the FC Isle of Man squad. For whatever reason this year, he doesn't seem to be there in that squad or being involved. And he's taken a drop into Division 2. I think Castletown will probably get promoted this year. But where a team's really struggling for players, they've only got one. I think it's nice for them to, hang in there and just try and make it work. For whatever reason, he's left, and, you accept that one. But St George's tomorrow against Peel, I just think they'll find it too difficult. We've seen over recent games when St George's have played the top sides, they just haven't got quite enough. And Johnny Myers must be getting frustrated. But, if Kieran McNulty's missing, there's another sort of minus for them. But with Johnny there, he'll get the best out of the lads. But I just don't think they'll have enough. And that's why I go for Peel.
Then up in the north of the island, another in the mix up at the top, Ayr United. They're at home to Corinthians. This isn't a straightforward one for the northern side, is it?
No, it isn't. It's probably one of the best games I saw last year in Manx football. Was the Ayr against Corinthians league game at Ayr, and it was the one where Ayr actually won the league. They didn't beat Corinthians. I think it was a draw, if I remember rightly. But that night, Russian had sort of dropped points, and that allowed Ayr to win it. But it's always a big battle for these two sides. I watched Corinthians last week, 3-0 up after 7 minutes, Rob. Josh Ridings with the 3 goals. Pretty impressive, but then Ramsey worked hard. They got 2 goals back, and then Josh Ridings had a penalty sort of saved by Kirill Vilev at the end. So, I just think Corinthians have got a good chance of winning this one, but against Old Boys, Ayr were poor, but since then they've got it right, and Nick Hurt will be trying to see if he can get them young lads mixing it with Corinthians, but I think the experience might just get Corinthians through it.
And then in the south of the island, a team looking to press on, Russian United. They're at home to Laxey.
Yeah, I'm delighted. You don't like to see a team as big as Russian, and last year second, Rob, and this year last week Geordies against Russian, the two bottom sides of the Premier League, and I don't know the last time that happened, but certainly Russian back with a bang. Furu Davies was there, Mikey Williams was there. We don't know if they're included in tomorrow's squad, but with those two included, it just gives you a different edge up front, because Mikey Williams is tremendous, and Furu, as we know, will always score plenty of goals, and just Man Mountain, he's so strong, good on the ball, good in the air, he's got everything, and 1 or 2 other players are coming in, I noticed, for Russian as well, so it'll make them stronger. But take note of Laxey as well. They're climbing up the league a little bit. Good result last week against the Johnners, winning 1-0. That was impressive. And I think Johnny Palmer's team is looking quite strong this week as well. And if Tom Smith and everyone else at the back can keep things tight and stop the Russians' attack, then I can see Laxey getting something out of it. I'm going to go for a draw in this one.
Just very quickly before we move on to the next game, actually just a bit of a point of clarity. You mentioned Laxey's result there. I believe I said on Saturday Sport Classified last week that was St John's first league defeat of the campaign away at Laxey 1-0. It was in fact their second. Yeah. So if I did say that, there we go. There's your clarity for you. It was St John's second league defeat of the season. They, of course, lost 4-3 to Peel.
There's a lot to remember, Rob.
Absolutely.
Lot to remember.
Plenty to take in. Well, there is another game in the Canada Life Men's Premier League this weekend. Douglas Royal, they host Moran.
Yeah, same again with Douglas Royal. We don't know how strong they're going to be, but in recent weeks, you've got Dominic McCarry-Brennan. You've also got Kyle Watson in that team there. Lewis Roberts as well, playing for FC Alaman. So that weakens them a little bit. But, Moran, I thought they might have turned the corner when they beat one of the top sides. But, since then, they've dropped more points, and it's going to be a tough one for them. If Royal have got the full-strength side, Rob, I don't see a problem in this game for Royal. But without knowing the squad, I just don't know. So at the moment, I'll just hedge my bets and say that Royal might have 1 or 2 back, and I'm going to go for Royal to take the points.
Plenty of food for thought before the games tomorrow. And then we look at DPS Limited Division 2. Before we take a look at the fixtures, the league leaders, St Mary's, on 14 points. Crucially, they don't have a game this weekend, and Castletown in second on 12 points. They could go top. And then right in behind them as well, Michael United with a couple of games in hand on 10 points. It's a cracking league as well, isn't it?
I think the DPS Limited Div 2 is more interesting than the Premier League at the moment. The reason why I say that, Rob, is I watched St Mary's against St Mary's last week. St Mary's against Michael, and absolutely superb game of football to watch. Both teams committed, both teams wanted to win.
Plenty of comments that it was a cracking game as a neutral.
Good football, there was a lot of commitment, but no malice in it at all. I don't mind a committed tackle going in to win the ball as long as it's directed well. But I'll tell you what, they've got a team and a half there. That's probably the best team I've seen Michael have in my time in Manx football, and that's a lot. And well done to them for doing it. And, their goalkeeper, I watched him play once, and that was last week. But if he plays that every week, then to me, Blaine Slattery and certainly Chris Bass need to have a look at him, because I thought he was really good. OK, he scored an own goal, but taking that apart, great display. Defensively, they were strong. Going forward, they were strong. And, when you look at the other two sides, Castletown, now here's one for you, Rob. How do you fit in 5 number 9s into a forward line? Because now you've got Alex Crawley, you've got Danny Lane, you've got De Silva, Eduardo De Silva, you've got De Silva Jr., and now you've got Nathan Cardy, who's a proven Ireland player. And the interesting thing, Nathan Cardy actually put Castletown out of the final of the Cal Cup last year, who was Castletown. So whether he can slot in there, I'm sure he will because his mates are there. So how do you play 5-9? So I'm waiting to find out tomorrow how that goes. But also when you look at the other teams around, St Mary's as well, you're right in saying no game this week and no game next week. So it's catch-up time for the teams around them. Fascinating to have a look at. But Braddon, don't forget them as well. And Braddon have got a game tomorrow that everyone expects them to pick up 3 points.
Well, in which case, let's get to those 5 games then in DPS Limited Division 2.
Yeah, D&D against Braddon. Braddon's current form, the way they've been going in front of goal, scoring plenty of goals. So while they're in with a chance with that sort of mentality, then you have to go for Braddon to win against D&D. Jim's against Foxdale. Foxdale, okay, they've lost Jay Chatwood at the start of the season, but they're still doing well without him, and I've got to go for Foxdale to win that. Douglas Athletic against Castletown. As you've probably seen, Douglas Athletic conceded an awful lot of goals, and when you're playing against probably now the most potent forward line in Manx football, I'm talking Premier League as well, then you have to point to a comfortable victory for Castletown. Not nice to say. Michael against Colby. I'm sorry, Ollie Edge, who I work with, who plays for Colby. His brother scores all the goals for him, but I just think Michael will beat them. And Ramsey Youth Centre against Governors, I think Ramsey Youth Centre will be too strong.
Now let's have a quick rattle through the combination leagues. 5 games in Canada Life, Combi 1.
Uncan against Union Mills. I'm going to go for Union Mills to win that. Moran against Douglas Royal. Close battle. I don't think there'll be much between the two games, but I'll just go for Douglas Royal. Old Boys against St John's. Old Boys really struggling. St John's, I think, might have 1 or 2 first-team players available, so I've got to go for St John's. Laxey against Russian. I've just been speaking to Tessa downstairs. Hopefully Mike and the boys there can get this game on. She's looking forward to watch her boyfriend play, but, you know, Russian, I'm not saying running away with the league, but are so strong. And Corinthians against Corinthians well up there, so I'm going to go for Corinthians to beat Ayr.
And then we have 4 games in DPS Limited Combi 2.
And I know it's hard to keep track of Combi 2 at the moment, Rob, because D&D have been awarded points that they'd actually lost, but the team that they played against played an ineligible player. So D&D well ahead at the moment. And against Braddon, close game, but I'll go for D&D. Foxdale against Jims, I go for Foxdale. Colby against Michael, I'm going to stick my neck out here and go for Michael to win that. And St Mary's against Pulrose. Difficult one to predict. St Mary's right up there, Pulrose just below him. So I'll go for St Mary's to take the points in that game.
Then we're into Sunday, and there are 2 games kicking off at 2 p.m. in the Canada Life Women's League.
What a humdinger. Top 2 sides in women's football. Corinthians against Peel at Ballafletcher. Kicks off at 2 o'clock. To me, it's between these 2 sides to win the league, and they've got to play each other again yet. So at the moment, Corinthians unbeaten against a more experienced Peel side. I'm just going to go for Peel just to sneak it, but Corinthians certainly can win it. But I just think last year Peel had the bit between the teeth and got it right. Castletown against Onken. I'm going to go for Onken to win that, even though Castletown have done really well to say it's their first time back at, or, you know, sort of the way they're playing at the moment. But I just think Onken will be too strong for them, and that's why I'm going to go for them to win.
And then last but certainly not least, we've got 2 games in the Masters football on Sunday.
Yeah, we've lost one, Rob. D&D against Colby. Unfortunately, D&D got 7 players. Still a lot of people going away. Because of COVID, people have missed holidays and stuff. It's half term. We always play games on the second Sunday of half term. So unfortunately, Colby get awarded the points. And Governors Athletic against Ayr. I watched that Ayr United side about 3 weeks ago play. It looks like the first team, Rob, to be honest with you. So I have to go for Ayr to win.
Very well, and we'll just give a quick mention. FC Isle of Man back in action tomorrow evening against Congleton Town in the NWCFL Premier Division. After an impressive 4-1 win away in the FA Vars at Billingham Town at the weekend, they then went on to get a huge point against Wythenshawe Town. 2-2 draw at Ericstan Park, and Wythenshawe Town now still the only undefeated side in that division. The best attack and the best defence. It was a huge result. Well, Tony, I was going to ask for your thoughts on this, but we're absolutely rammed for time. So I think I'll
have your thoughts.
Absolutely, I'm sure you will. But we'll have a little bit of a chat about that on Saturday Live with Paul Moran tomorrow. So, Tony, in the meantime, we'll catch up with you tomorrow and see you in the commentary booth tomorrow. And have a very good evening.
My pleasure.
So, yes, if you didn't catch that, if you're not heading down to the Bowl tomorrow night, FC Isle of Man versus Congleton Town, we've got you covered. Live coverage, game kicking off at 6 p.m. Full live match commentary from myself and Tony on Manx Radio AM 1368 and digital. Well, we're going to turn to rugby now, and the tough games keep on coming for Douglas, and the latest of those takes place at Portashee this weekend when they take on Birkenhead Park in the Regional 2 Northwest. That's one of 3 rugby fixtures taking place on Ireland this weekend. Vagabonds Men will be hoping to cause an upset at Fletcher, whilst third faces fourth in the Manx Shield. As ever, Dave Christian has more details.
The first place to start, I guess, is in Regional Northwest 2. Douglas will be hosting Birkenhead Park at Portashee. There's a 2:15 kickoff down there. And Douglas, well, they've had a fair record, I guess, in the past few seasons against Birkenhead Park, COVID aside. The games at Portashee have been relatively close. Not so close when we move away. I think there was a 60-0 away at Birkenhead Park, but these two sides have been playing each other since the early 1970s as part of the Cheshire Cup. On the field won't be quite so easy for Douglas. Douglas down near the bottom of Regional Northwest 2, Birkenhead Park in 4th place, I think, at the moment. And we're just starting to see the leading group pull away now. We're 7 fixtures in. Birkenhead Park played 7, won 5, lost 2. Douglas played 7, won 1, lost 6. So it's not quite going so well at Portashee, but we kind of expected that. And they've had their win against Altrincham Kersal at home a couple of weeks ago. That's given them a bit of a boost. We've got some players moving around, coming back in as well. I think Neil Killier's available this weekend. He gives a little bit of solidity in the pack. We know Harry Hewson's still injured. He's going to be out for a while, but Guy Wood declared himself fit. He's had a little ankle niggle that's been holding him up. So those sort of players coming back into the fray will give Douglas a little bit of a boost. Jack Shimon and Luke Hyland between them have been kicking points. Doesn't really matter who it is that's launching the ball off the tee. They're both going really well. So with a bit of home advantage and a fair wind, and obviously the weather conditions not looking especially favourable, if they can get this game in before the rain arrives, I think they've got a reasonable chance. Vagabonds, however, in ADM 3, Vagabonds picked up a win. It's not the way they would have wanted. They beat old Bedians when Bedians didn't turn up, obviously unable to field a side that weekend. And I guess it kind of highlights the difficulties clubs will have when travelling to the Isle of Man. It is a full day out. Vaggers, however, just missed out by a point away at Ellesmere Port last week. The team virtually unchanged this week. The forwards exactly the same. Couple of changes in the back line. I think we've got Cal Donnell coming in the centres. He was very impressive against New Brighton. That was a game I covered for Saturday Live a few weeks back. And Cam Finley also coming into the back line. And on the bench, I've seen a name I hadn't seen for a little while now, Nathan Gibson. Nathan Gibson, an incredibly talented player, immense ball carrier, very difficult to put on the ground. And having him on the bench is going to give Vagabonds a whole world of additional options. Whether it's back row, second row or front row, he can play any position in the forwards. And with no ladies game, the ladies coach Jack Kane also on the bench this week, giving Vagabonds again more front row options. So they got plenty of options there. The game is at Fletcher. It kicks off also at 2:15. And Vagabonds, Thornton Cleveley's struggling away from home. Vaggers might just have a sniffer this one. Domestically, we've got the Ravenscroft Manx Shield. It should have been a rest week. We'd hoped to have 3 fixtures on. We've got Ramsey's Reds and Nomads Greens. We also had Ramsey's Blues and Nomads Whites. And we also had a fixture between Western Vikings and Castletown. However, the difficulty is these were all rearranged matches. And when you initially put a fixture list out with a rest week with no fixtures on at all, sometimes trying to drop a rearranged fixture into them is kind of awkward. So 2 of those games have slipped by the wayside, and we're left with Ramsey Reds and Nomads Greens. That's at the Muirk Park, also a 2:15 kickoff. We'll be covering that one with Saturday Live. We've got the young sports reporter protege Archie Callahan will be there with me, and we'll be getting Archie to give a little bit of insight into that game. It should be, on paper, it should be a win for Ramsey's Reds. I've had a look at their team. Haven't got any team news from Southern Nomads just yet, but I understand Southern Nomads a little bit under pressure for personnel this weekend, and that gives me the indication, I think, that Ramsey, who are pretty much at full strength, are going to probably take the points. In terms of the Ravenscroft Manx Shield, both Ramsey's Reds and Nomads Greens have lost to their other teams. Ramsey Reds lost to the Blues and Nomads Greens lost to their Whites. So this game should be a bit of a leveller up, and whoever takes the points will be up there in the mix at the very top of the table.
Manx Radio Sport.
And finally tonight, another important weekend awaits in the mixed Manx hockey season. Among what's in store, there are 3 separate derbies taking place in one of the divisions this weekend, and a 3-way battle for survival continues in the mixed Premier League. Ben Cunningham has been casting his eye over what's to come tomorrow. Looking at the latest round of fixtures in the mixed hockey leagues, let's start with the Rossborough Mixed Premier League. Early pushback at 12:35 at QE2, and this could be an interesting one because Valkyrie, they're hosting Castletown Celts.
Yeah, this could be really close. I mean, Castletown Celts have had a really good season, but then Valkyries have also had a really good season as well. There's only 1 point between the two of them. Valkyries are ahead, but only by 1 point. So it could be a really close game, this. I think this could maybe come down to just one decisive goal. There's
3 other games in the Mixed Premier League, all pushing back at 2:05. At the National Sports Centre, Vikings A, they're taking on Backersby.
Yeah, Vikings A, on paper you'd say favourites, but don't rule out Backers B to maybe try and pull off a shock result, but I'm going to go for a Vikings A win there.
And then up at Ramsey Grammar School, it's Ramsey A, and they take on Vikings B. This could be an interesting one too.
Yeah, I've got this down as the game of the weekend in the Premier League. Ramsey, second from bottom. Vikings B got a really, really crucial win last weekend against Valkyries B. So it would be really interesting to see how this one plays out. Maybe Ramsey might get their second win of the season. Maybe Vikings B might get their second win of the season. Who knows?
And then the other game at 2:05. Valkyries B are at home at QE2. They're looking to get some points on the board, but it'll be a very tough ask because they're up against Backers A.
Yeah, Backers A, league leaders, and then Valkyries B, bottom of the table. But they have got a point, and they have been pushing hard to try and get some results, but I think it might be a bridge too far for Valkyries B to get one over Backers A.
And then we move into Rossborough Mixed Division 1, 3 games.
Yep, so the 11:05 is Valkyries C against Vikings D. Valkyries C top of the league, but they lost out last week to Harlequins A. And that's brought the gap now down to just 2 points at the top of the table. So it'd be interesting to see if Valkyries can make up for dropping points last week and the week before when they drew with Castletown. The 12:35 game is Harlequins A against Vikings C. Vikings C, bottom of the league. Harlequins A coming off that really good win last weekend over top of the table, Valkyries C. And then at 3:35 we have Backers C against Castletown Southerners. Both teams equal on points. Backers B just ahead at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out, but that could be a really close game, I reckon.
And then 3 games as well in the Rossborough Mixed Division 2.
Yep, so at 12:35 we have Ramsey Rookies against Vikings E. These two have already met in this league and it was a close encounter, but I think Vikings E will just have it on paper. The next game as well is at 12:35 and it's a Castletown derby, Castletown Camags against Castletown Cushags. Camags top of the table, Cushags sadly at the bottom of the table, so I'm going to go for a Camags win there. And then the final game in this league is at 3:35, and that's Ramsey Ravens against Valkyries D. Ramsey Ravens, second in the league, hoping to keep the push to maybe catch Camags in this league. So I'm going to go for Ramsey Ravens win there.
And last but certainly not least this weekend, 3 games as well in the Rossborough Mixed Division 3.
So yeah, in Division 3, we have 3 derbies. The first one at 11:05 is Backers Colts against Backers D. This will be an interesting one, I reckon. Backers D really have been showing their experience, but then Backers Colts are full of youth and speed. So it'll be interesting to see which team comes out on top, but I think Backers Colts will just have it. The second derby is at 11:05 again, and it's Castletown Cosney against Castletown Carags. This will be a good close game. Castletown Carags and Cosney both have had pretty much the same season, but as usual with any derby, it could go either way. And then the final derby in this league is Harlequins B against Harlequins C, and that's at 3:35 at the NSC. This will be a close game, but I'm sure all 3 derbies will be played in good spirits, and I'm sure there'll be lots of club support down at all games.
Manx Radio Sport.
That's all we have time for this evening on Friday Sport Preview. Many thanks to my guests this week, Tony Mepham, Dave, Christian and Ben Cunningham. Well, Chris Kinley is up with you next in the next few moments, but from me, in the meantime, it is bye for now.
Manx Radio.